How many times have you bought spaghetti squash with the intention of using it as a pasta replacement, and then when the time for dinner comes 2 or 3 days later, the idea of having to deal with the spaghetti squash is a little overwhelming, so you grab the pasta anyway? Well, I'm gonna fix all of that in this video because I'm gonna show you how to pressure cook, prep, freeze, and reheat your spaghetti squash so it can all be done ahead for a really quick and easy, healthy meal. Welcome to The Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. So the first thing you want to do when you get back with your spaghetti squash is pressure cook it, okay? Now you could cook it other ways, obviously. You could even roast it if you wanted to, but the way that I found that it works the best to take it all the way through freezing and then reheating is to use the pressure cooker because it will cook it enough to be able to get your spaghetti squash out in strands, but not too much so that it's mushy. Now, I already have a recipe on my website and a video that shows you how to pressure cook spaghetti squash if you're gonna serve it right then and there. But this is gonna be a little bit different. So I'm gonna go ahead and go through the process. It's very similar, but just a little different timings. So the first thing we're gonna do is get your electric pressure cooker, put 1 cup of cold tap water in, put your basket or your rack, whatever your spaghetti squash will fit on. This is about a 1.5 pound spaghetti squash. It would be the same instructions for a 1.5 to 2 pound squash. Anything bigger than that, you might need to adjust your time up. So just put that on the rack there and then put on the pressure lid. Turn the valve to the sealed position and we're gonna go under pressure, high is what we want, and we're gonna go for 15 minutes and hit start. Now, the difference between my other recipe and this one is that after the 15 minutes is up, you can do an immediate release. Then we're gonna allow the spaghetti squash to cool. Then I'll show you how to cut it so that you can get really nice strands. We're gonna form those strands into little nests that we will then freeze so that it's super easy when you want a pile of spaghetti squash to sub in for pasta in all your dishes. It's super easy to get them out of the freezer and pop one right into a reheat. All right, when the time is up, you can do an immediate release. All right, so once the pressure is released, you can open up the lid, do that away from you because it's gonna be nice and steamy in there. All right, and now we can remove the rack. Now you can put this into a cold water bath. I usually don't even worry about it for this. I just let it sit here. And it did crack right there on one side. Don't worry about that either, it's perfectly fine. Just let it sit long enough for you to be able to handle it, okay? So it doesn't have to cool completely, but you definitely want it to, be able for you to touch it so you can cut it. All right, we can turn the Ninja Foodi off. We're done with that for right now. We're going to process this spaghetti squash into little nest, if you will, of spaghetti squash noodles that will mimic pasta. Then I'll show you how to freeze them for the best results, and then we will reheat them and put them with a little delicious pesto. So once the squash has cooled enough that you can touch it with your hands, it's still warm, but I can touch it without burning myself. Then we can get to cutting off the ends and getting all the spaghetti squash strands out. So for this preparation, what I like to do is cut it right here. And cut it on the other end, just like that. And now we will unwrap it. So where it split, I'm gonna unwrap. Now, if you didn't have a split, you can take a pair of scissors and split it, a little knife and split it. But when it's split, I just go ahead and pull that off. It works perfectly. And now, usually what I'd like to do is get 4 spaghetti squash mounds, if you will, or nests. So what I'm gonna do is cut right down here and cut right down here. And we do need to get the seeds out, so I do that first and just sort of get those seeds out right there. and take that middle out for the most part. And once I have that out, then literally I just push to create these like little spaghetti squash mounds. Break it up very gently because you want them to freeze in long strands. So just very gently. And I'm kind of strange. I find this very fun to do. It's almost like a little challenge. So once I have my strand, just like that, now doesn't that look like a pile of pasta? I'll put it on my tray there, lined with parchment, and I'll move on to the next one. And it helps that the strands are a little undercooked at this point for a couple of reasons. But the main one is it's just easier to break apart into long strands. They don't fall apart like they do if they're cooked all the way. Okay, I might only get 3 on this tray. It's not as big as my other trays. I'll have to get a second tray. All right, same thing here. We're gonna cut it again, just like that. And don't throw those seeds away. They make delicious roasted, I guess squash seeds in this instance. All right, there we go. Now you don't want them touching because you want them to freeze individually. So once you have all of your spaghetti squash nest on parchment on a tray, 1 tray, 2 trays, little plates like this, whatever, put them in the freezer and let them sit overnight in the freezer so that they freeze individually. And then you can package them up. So what I like to do is take my little spaghetti squash nest and I vacuum seal them. However, you can, if you don't have a vacuum sealer, don't worry, just use a freezer bag or some other freezer container and put them in there and seal them up. And then when you are ready to make your spaghetti squash, grab one out, get your Ninja Foodi, or if you want to steam it another way, you certainly can. And the basket or the plate that comes with the Ninja Foodi should be inside. That's gonna hold our little nest. And then we have 2 cups of water going in there. Just gonna cut this open here. And this is straight out of the freezer, so it is still frozen solid. And we're gonna just throw this in. You could do 2 at a time in this size of a basket. Maybe 3, but you know, the more you could probably, you know what? I'm just thinking about this. You could probably throw 4 in. It doesn't matter if they go back together once they're heated up because you can just take your tongs and split them up again. So what am I thinking? You can put 4 in, no problem. All right, so we're gonna go to the steam function and we wanna go down to 3 minutes. Hit start, make sure your valve here is in the back is to the vent position so that we're releasing steam because we want to steam. We don't want to pressure cook. If you pressure cook for 3 minutes, these are going to turn to mush. So we want to steam for 3 minutes so they still have that nice noodly texture that we love about spaghetti squash. All right, so once the 3 minutes of steaming is up, go ahead and turn the Ninja Foodi off. And that is because sometimes during the steam function, the pin pops up, and if the pin is popped, you can't open the lid. Even though we are not under pressure, you still can't open the lid. So we need to let that go down and just turn the pot off and let that happen naturally. It only takes a minute or so. It took 5 minutes for the steam to build before the countdown started, so it's a total of an 8-minute steaming process if you wanted to replicate this on the stove. If you're using an Instant Pot that seals the pot, during steaming, then I would drop your time to maybe 1 minute of steaming time, because you are building pressure, so the temperature inside the pot is increased when you use the steam on the Instant Pot with the models that seal the pot when you select steam, okay? There are a few models that let the steam release. You would follow the same instructions for those models. All right, I can hear it quieting down, so we are almost done. There we go. The pin just dropped. Now we can open up the lid. Of course, it's going to be steamy, so do that away from you. I just usually sit there with the lid like this and let it out for a few seconds. And then we go and get out our spaghetti squash. So go ahead and pick it out. You can see it's still in the strands. Now this one, it's really interesting how this happens. I did 2 minutes for one the day before, and it was a little on the hard side. So now we are fully cooked. We still have our strands though, okay? And the texture should be that of an al dente spaghetti, right? That's what we want. All right, so how are we gonna jazz this up? What I'm gonna do today is add in a little bit of basil pesto that I just made, and a little bit of butter. So I have about 1 teaspoon of pesto, about 1.5 teaspoons of butter, and I'm gonna put a little bit of Parmesan cheese on there. And just simply mix it up. You could put a little cream if you wanted to make a cream-based sauce. Obviously, you could put spaghetti sauce and meatballs on top, or chicken. I mean, there's just so much you can do with this. It's really quick and easy, and it's absolutely delicious. All right, once that gets blended up enough, let's go ahead and dig in. Twirl it like spaghetti, right? This is unbelievable to me. Simply unbelievable. The texture is perfect. Absolutely perfect on this spaghetti squash. It has the bite of an al dente pasta. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And so easy to do. Easy to prep, easy to get out of the freezer, and quick and easy to make for dinner. Imagine all the possibilities that you could do here. Think about all the things that you could pair this with. The texture is almost that of like even a rice noodle. So you could put a peanut sauce with this and some chicken and make it into an Asian-inspired type of meal. You could go traditional Italian. You could do the pesto with chicken like I did. You could do a pizza type of, Italian with some melted mozzarella. I mean, really, you could just do anything with it, and you're still skipping the carbs that are in the pasta, and you're not gonna miss them, I promise. So as always, make it yours, make it delicious, and keep it real.